Thank you, dearest. Good morning, dearests. So, the theme for 2023, living out loud. The theme for October is power to the people.
Power to the people, right on.
Today's topic, the power within. Our first inspired reading on the topic, power within, comes from Emily Cady. We go into the divine presence that we may come forth into the world with new inspiration, increased courage, and the power for overcoming. The next inspired reading is from Ernest Holmes. There must be a recognition that the power of the word, operating as the truth and reality of being, can do all things. So let us affirm together with passion and power. I go within to connect with my source of power. Okay. And now I'm going to introduce a woman of tremendous power, Dr. Reverend Kathleen.
So I have a question for you to start things off. What did the wind farm say to the coal plant? I'm here to clear the air. And this week, anyway, let me give you a little bit of background. In 2015, nearly every country in the world, 195 nations, signed the Paris Agreement to hold Earth's temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And so there was some good news this week. The International Energy Agency, which is the world's watchdog on this topic, announced a spectacular, that is the words of the one who is the leader of that agency, spectacular growth in clean energy, which is getting us closer to the 1.5 degree goal. Take it in. I know. It's important to celebrate and stay optimistic. I know that it's very challenging with the things that we hear, but it's important to know that we can make a difference. And we're talking about power, the power of our vision, the power of our intention, the power of our word, and then that flows into action. So I'm seeing that as a really good sign. And since that's one of the things that we have in our prayers every week, at least I do with my prayer partners, to me that we call that a demonstration of prayer as we begin to see things like that show up. And then we say, more, please. So this month, we are clearing the air in consciousness in order to be a greater vehicle or vessel for divine power, spiritual power that can transform our lives and transform the world. And it comes with aligning ourselves to a right understanding of what this thing called power is. And then as we align with that so-called clean power, we'll call it clean power, clean use of power, And we come together as community with intentions, with shared causes, and with ideas, which we do. We have these shared causes, shared ideas. Our power with that intention, that focus of community, makes a tremendous difference. The power multiplies as we gather together and we focus on these intentions. So we, the people, can make amazing differences in the world. And it's amazing what this community does. We may not be the biggest community in the world, but we do amazing things every year for each other and for the world around us. Yeah, I see Mary back there clapping. So today the focus is on power. Power, which can be a very triggering word. I get it. Particularly if you have experienced an abuse of power. Then power can be a very loaded word. So this month is about reducing our triggers by doing the inner work, clearing the air within, to make a way, actually today we're focusing on that, to make way for a clean relationship with our personal power. We begin by going within to discover our beliefs about power. So we acknowledge it, we do the forgiveness work that's necessary on past experiences we've had, and we continue to have compassion with ourselves in the process and compassion for others. And, of course, to that, we always add the importance of spiritual practice, meditation, the form of prayer that we do, or whatever your form of prayer is, that empowers us, aligns us with higher truth, and then it empowers the word that we speak. The bottom line is we are here to heal our relationship with power. And as we do that, it creates a tremendous foundation for unifying, uplifting, and contributing to the greater good. So the 3 points that I'm going to be talking about today is how we lose power, and then the next two are about how we realign with power through spiritual practice, and I'm talking about divine power, the divine power that's within, aligning with divine power with spiritual practice, and aligning with divine power through forgiveness. How we lose power. I found this quote by Gary Zukav, and so I'm going to share with you the essence of what it is. The first thing he talks about is that first of all, we have this perfect pattern within us of power. And when we operate outside our spiritual design of wholeness, because we are already whole, perfect, and complete in spirit, we come into the world that way. It gets clouded by our experiences and cultural beliefs that maybe don't serve us, that we pick up. But we experience the loss of power. And ultimately, we never lose power. But the experience of the loss of power comes when, he says, when you feel threatened by others. You lose power when you distance yourself from your fellow humans out of resentment, bitterness, or a sense of disappointment or unworthiness or superiority. You lose power when you long for something or someone. You lose power when you envy another person. And beneath all of these is a 4-letter word. Fear. You got it, Jen. It's fear. Fear that you are somehow vulnerable and you need to build up your defenses. So every distress and every dysfunction is from giving our power out of fear to external circumstances. Let's breathe that in. It's important to understand that. That's the place where we start, so we know why our spiritual practice is so important. So the next one is realigning with divine power, clean power, clearing the air with spiritual practice. I love that quote by Emily Cady, Lessons of Truth. She's a Unity person. Years ago, one of the original Unity people, and an author, New Thought person. And again, I'm going to repeat it again because it's so powerful. She said, we go into the divine presence that we may come forth into the world with new inspiration, increased courage, and the power for overcoming. There's a lot packed into that particular quote. The importance of spiritual practice, going within, into the divine presence. So again, the three pillars of science of mind, the teachings that we offer, are meditation, spiritual mind treatment, which is a form of affirmative, very powerful form of affirmative prayer, and visioning, catching a higher vision for our lives or for our community. And these practices prepare us to align with that divine presence, to come from that divine presence with that clean type of energy or power. Oops. Maybe I can put this more in the front. I wonder if this is what's getting in the way. I'm going to put this over to the side and see if that helps. Okay. So these spiritual practices align us with our true identity. We are individualizations of the one source. Individualizations. Other spiritual traditions say it in different ways. And in the Hindu tradition, it's the Atman. In the Christian tradition, it's the Christ within. And you can, whatever it is, we're talking about this so-called realization of the true self that happens through our spiritual practice. And then we can draw upon that clean power of spirit for the courage that is necessary to face the distorted beliefs that we've picked up along the way about power, experiences of misuse of power, whether it's by others or by ourselves. So carrying the burden of these memories is an issue because we tie up our creative energy in those memories. And as a result, it hinders our growth and our ability to stand in our power authentically and in a very clear and strong way. And so the beauty about meditation in particular is that it develops the observer self-consciousness, the ability to observe our surroundings, but also to observe also what's going on in our own minds. Becoming conscious of what flows through the mind and then the emotional reactions that come from those thoughts. So it's key. It's this awareness, consciousness, is the first step of transforming those beliefs, becoming aware of the beliefs. First step, awareness. And so now we move into realigning with divine power through forgiveness. So after awareness, we do the work of inner transformation through what we call forgiveness. And forgiveness actually has a very broad meaning in our spiritual tradition because it's all about doing the work that's necessary to transform consciousness, to gain a different perspective on things, and therefore to change the belief that we've picked up as a result of our past experiences. We don't get to the core belief. We just say, I forgive you, or I forgive that, but we don't change the core belief. then we're going to have a repeat of the past. And so it's important to, and also forgiveness is an ongoing thing often until we finally reach that. And I really owe a lot of my understanding of the forgiveness process to Colin Tipping and his book, Radical Forgiveness. We've taught some classes here in that in the past, and it's an awakening to this idea that radical forgiveness is about transforming your own consciousness, your own beliefs, releasing the poison of the belief and the emotions that go with it so that we can move forward in our lives. And it doesn't mean that you stay in relationships that are unhealthy for you. It does not mean that at all. It's inner work to release the toxins from our being. So we liberate ourselves then. We get out of the grip of painful memories and the chains of resentment and anger by doing the forgiveness work. By forgiving ourselves, we acknowledge that we're human and have likely made mistakes in how we've handled power. And we extend compassion to others, allowing room for their conscious evolution as well. As we remove our investment, again, of our creative and emotional energy in the past, and just think about that, doing the forgiveness work, it's like cutting the cords of these attachments that we have to the past, which then frees up this huge amount of creative energy to be used to do our work in the world, whatever that is, whatever that calling is, and to make a difference. So we're talking about clearing the air in consciousness, so the clean, powerful energy of the Spirit flows through us in abundant supply. So forgiveness then, just as other practices, helps us to stand in our higher selves, in our true identities, to be our higher selves. So I'd like to illustrate a story of forgiveness. Even though the word forgiveness is not used, I'd like you to notice how this young woman moved through her life and gained an empowered perspective, because that's the whole idea, is to not let things diminish us, but to keep moving forward from an empowered place. And this is, I'm going to read it in her words. She said, "When I was 11, my parents enrolled me in a new school on the outskirts of town. I was the only girl of color there and the only one wearing a hijab. It was hard. Not a day passed where I wouldn't hear negative comments about my appearance. I broke down about it all the time. People would scream terrorist at me as they walked by. I had people spit and throw food at me, and on one occasion, someone even tried to pull my hijab off my head and tighten it around my neck. I felt scared. I contemplated taking it off. It could have been easy, but it didn't feel right. For me, wearing a hijab is empowering and liberating. I feel proud when I wear it. It's part of my identity, my culture, my heritage. It's not just a mark of my religion, it's also a symbol of my strength, my self-love, and my willingness to deal with whatever life throws at me. It made me stronger. It gave me the drive to brush away the negativity and go on so that I could get a degree in theater and do some acting. It helped me reach my passion. It pushed me to do all the things that make me proud to be the woman I am today. Plus, with it, I never have a bad hair day. There's something to be said for that. So, the power of forgiveness. Now, again, notice she didn't say forgiveness, but there was obviously she obviously had to continue to do forgiveness and letting things go and letting go of the resentment and the anger and shift her perspective in order to align with her own divine power, the power that flowed through her. So this week, I'm encouraging you to continue with, I think most of us here do spiritual practice, your spiritual practice, your meditation, your prayer, with a focus on healing your relationship with power. And so that means noticing the thoughts that go through in relationship to maybe things that you see in the news that you think might be an abuse of power, or things that you see around you. Because as we observe our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions that relate to power, we will notice the triggers that arise. We'll notice the effect that it has on our bodies and our minds and everything else. And as we therefore become more mindful of our responses to power and power dynamics, we can then consciously redirect them toward compassion, another, an expression of love. So we're moving from fear to love. That's what it is all the time. It's this dance between fear and love, or fear and faith, which is another expression of love. And remember that beautiful, I don't think I said this, power versus force. David Hawkins, I left that part out, but it's really an important part. Because he defines power and he defines force. They're both the way that we use one. One comes from a higher place and one comes from fear. So listen to his definition, though. He said, power unifies, energizes, uplifts, dignifies, and gives support. He's talking about clean power. Force, on the other hand, from the ego, from fear, polarizes, puts down, dehumanizes, creates a sense of separation. I'm going to read that again. Power unifies, remember that's from our higher selves. Power unifies, energizes, uplifts, dignifies, and gives support. Force polarizes, puts down, dehumanizes, and creates a sense of separation. So those are some really key things, which are fairly obvious, but he used muscle testing to test words, and the word power, it makes you strong. So it's of spirit. The word force, if you do a muscle testing, you come out weak. So it's the intention, and not the intention, but just the energy that's behind how we use the power that makes the difference. Fear or love, higher self or ego. So here's the thing. As we nurture this clean power, as we nurture and come from our higher selves more and more and more, we don't need to be afraid of power. Power rooted in love, power rooted in our higher selves, is that which is being called for to truly transform our own lives and transform our world. That's why it's so important. And as we nurture that clean power within ourselves, then we inspire others to do the same. We have that rippling effect of clean power that transmutes itself, not only in our communities, our families, and our friends, but it just ripples throughout the world. So let's turn within. So just feeling the joy and the relief and the great sense of optimism that comes as we take that deep dive within that presence, which is pure love, pure wisdom, pure intelligence, the place of peace and harmony and infinite good. As we take that deep dive within, we rise up. What rises up within us is the consciousness to clear the air in consciousness. So knowing right here and right now that some major clearing is taking place in our consciousness, clearing out all those images of power that were actually force, and instead reclaiming the true meaning of power, which is the power of the divine flowing in, through, and as us. It's the power of God, the power of infinite spirit. And so I give my thanks for this newly surging, clean power that is moving through each and every one of our lives, and knowing that it makes a profound difference, an exponential difference, because power is exponentially more powerful than force. So I release this word with a heart full of gratitude into the universal mind, the creative medium that surrounds us and fills us. We could call it energy, we could call it consciousness, we could call it God, but just knowing that it's happening right here, right now, planting seeds of truth in that soil of universal mind. I release it, I let it be, and I invite us all to accept this truth with a powerful yes, and so it is. Thank you.